Hey there. Welcome to the Literary Escape Podcast. I'm your host, Becky, and I'm glad you're here today. On the Literary Escape Podcast, we talk about books. We talk about escapes that we can have through our books. And I always have some great book recommendations for you. So, buckle up and let's see where we're going today. Enjoy the show. And share with you the top 3 episodes of 2022. And it was a lot of fun looking back over all the different things that I shared last year. Some really, really fascinating interviews, some fun books, and it was also fun to see what resonated with you all. So let's jump right in. So the third most popular episode was episode number 45. And in that episode, I interviewed author Rachel Hauck. So, in case you haven't listened to that episode or haven't read author Rachel Hauck yet, let me just tell you a little bit about her. She is a New York Times bestselling author, USA Today bestselling author, Wall Street Journal bestselling author, which is pretty amazing. When I talked to her, we were talking about her book, To Save a King. It was the middle of last year. And since then, she has been busy on another book. It's called The Best Summer of Our Lives, and that is coming out in June of this year, June 27th, 2023. And so you're going to want to make sure that you keep an eye out for that one or go hit the pre-order button on that one. It is, again, called The Best Summer of Our Lives by Rachel Hauck. So Rachel is a Christian romance author. And in this episode, we talk about how she became an author, kind of how she likes to write, and how she chooses her settings. Here's a little clip from that episode. Not even that long ago, Jane Austen had to not use her real name, an author. I forget how she did her first book, but her brother had to submit it, and crazy to think that women weren't supposed to be authors.
I know, but look how far we've come.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing people's stories about how they get there. And so what was your first published book?
My first published book was a little tiny thin romance called Lambert's Pride. It was in one of those collections, the monthly subscription collections.
Okay.
The Barber Publishing produced 4 heart songs every month, and I met one of their top authors at the time. This was probably in the late 90s.
Okay.
Met her at a conference, Lynn Coleman, and she said, why don't we do something together? And she lived in Florida, so we got together. And she talked to the publisher and said, hey, I think Rachel can do this. Why don't we do something together? So we wrote the first one together, and then I wrote the other books in the series.
Fun.
But what's really funny about this, Becky, is that I initially did not want to write for them. I read their guidelines, super sweet romance, a list of words you could not use.
Oh my.
Like good grief. Lots of G's. You couldn't geez, you couldn't say that. I thought, well, how are these people going to be real? And so because it was kind of aimed at a really conservative market, and I thought, this isn't me. I'm not doing this. Well, guess what? Yes, you are.
Be careful what you say, right?
Right. Yeah. So I wrote it, and then Lynn kind of put her spin on it. We brainstormed and plotted the book together. But that kind of taught me. I was working full time also. I was a project manager at a software company at, where I came up for Harris. And so I was writing at night, writing on the weekends. I know what it's like to do that whole full-time thing and have to have a book deadline. They're only about 40,000 words. So it took me 5 months because I had to work. But that was my first book. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, then Chick Lit came along right in that whole swirl.
Nice. Yeah.
Kristen Billerbeck wrote What a Girl Wants. It was just going to break out Chick Lit in the Christian space. And I was reading all this Chick Lit. I was reading General Market Chick Lit. I was reading Kristen's books. And I said, I can do this. This is me. I wrote a Chick Lit when I was 12. I'm not kidding. I wrote a story about a girl who lived in New York City. I'd never even been to New York City. had an apartment, and I don't know what her job was because I was a huge Mary Tyler Moore fan. So I wrote about Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh,
So
fun.
I loved that voice. I thought it was funny. I didn't know if I could write funny, but I thought I'd give it a try. And
Yeah.
then Steeple Hill, which is a arm of Harlequin,
Okay.
they came up with Steeple Hill Cafe, which was mom lit and chick lit. So my
That's
next book
fun.
was George on Her Mind.
So that was the third most popular episode last year, episode number 45 with author Rachel Howell. So the second most popular episode is episode number 42. And that is with author Elizabeth Moore Krause. I talked with Liz about her debut novel, Three Sisters, 3 Weeks, 3 Countries, Still Talking. And this is the story of her and her sisters going on a big journey, 3 week journey. They left their families for 3 weeks and headed off on this adventure together. They each chose a country, and all sorts of fun and chaos and adventure ensued. So here's a clip from this one. This is your debut novel, right?
It is.
And
It is.
you, from what I read, you went on a trip with your sisters.
And I did not kill either of them. I made a promise to mom.
Well, having 2 sisters, that's impressive.
See, and I'm a person of my words. So did I want to? Probably. Which sister are you? I'm the middle sister.
I'm the middle.
See, we're great. We understand.
We are great.
What's with those other 2? Yeah, what's with those other 2? I don't know.
That's so funny. So how did the trip come about? Let's start there.
Okay, so my younger sister, Ree, her name's Laurie, but she goes by Ree. And the reason for that's in the book. She's traveled to Europe a lot. And every time she comes home, she says, come on, you 2, we need to go. But every time, neither Les nor I could go. It's either work, obligations, money, things like that.
Yeah.
So I write about Thanksgiving 2018. She says, okay, you're retiring in May, Diz, that's my nickname, and Les, we need to go. We're all healthy, we can afford it. So that's how it came about. It was because of her that she, said, okay, we'll go.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so where did you guys go to?
Well, she wanted to start in Italy, and she started talking about the ice cream and such, and we were pretty much there. But I said, let's go somewhere where you haven't been before, kind of on an even playing ground. So we had learned that we're Irish, Scottish, and English. So we went to Ireland, Scotland, and England.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
And then, of course, we all start talking over each other, as sisters do.
Yep.
And let's go here, let's do that, let's stay here. And I finally said, how about for each country, 3 countries, we each take 1 country, we do the planning, we do the reservations, and whatever we want to go, you 2 have to come as well. And the bonus is, whoever country it is, you get the choice of bedrooms.
Oh, so nice.
They found my idea very welcoming, and I figured this is how the trip is going to go. I'm going to suggest they're going to love.
Yeah.
I'm a dreamer.
Yeah, that's a good thing to be, isn't it?
It is. So that's what we did. We started with there. We had to talk Les out of not backing out. She had never flown overseas. Well, she'd flown to Hawaii from California, but not a trip this long. So, but we talked her into it.
Coming from the West Coast over, that is a long trip.
It is.
Further east, yeah.
One wouldn't think, but it is. But it turned out really well for the most part.
Okay.
The book, Eat, Love, Pray.
Mm-hmm.
We're more of eat, lost, and laugh. That's who we are.
That eat, works lost, too.
Laugh. It does. And we laughed a lot.
So that was the second most popular episode of 2022, episode number 42, with author Elizabeth Moore Krause and her book, 3 Sisters, 3 Weeks, 3 Countries, Still Talking. So now we're on to the number 1 episode from 2022. This one surprised me a little bit. It wasn't an author interview, it was just one that I did by myself, but I can understand why it was popular. The episode I did, episode number 49, and it is books set in or set on the Amalfi Coast, Italy. And I can definitely understand why this was a popular episode. There's some fabulous books set along the Amalfi Coast. It was in my book club, the Literary Escape Book Club. It was one of our favorite places that we visited last year in our books. And the books that I offered up give you a lovely escape to go to Italy if you can't get away. So let me share a little bit of that clip with you. Easy escape places to visit this summer. So today is the kickoff of that, and I want to share with you one of my favorite literary places. I've not visited it in person yet, but boy, oh boy, is it on my bucket list. So today we are headed for the Amalfi Coast of Italy. I've read books set there a few different times and absolutely love it. We have visited the Amalfi Coast in the book club before. We did it last year, and we're doing it again this year. We're doing it in June. So let us head to the Amalfi Coast, because who doesn't want to go there? So before I jump into the books, I want to share a little bit about how I choose my books for the podcast and for the book club with you. If you've listened for any length of time, you probably realize I don't pick my books. They're not the typical book club books, I guess. And I have very specific things that I look for when I choose books. So I tend to choose books that have either a happy ending or a hopeful ending. And a lot of book club books tend to be more literary fiction, which don't really fall into the category of happy ending or hopeful ending. And since I started the book club in 2021, January of 2021, we were still in the midst of a pandemic. And quite frankly, it's just kind of how I roll. I like books that leave me feeling happy. And so if you don't like, if you prefer books that are more intellectual or that leave you in tears or that just gut you or that kind of thing, this isn't going to be the place for you. Just tell you that straight up, because those are not the books that I recommend. Those are not the ones that I will be sharing with you. If you, however, like books that make you feel like you've had an escape, that leave you feeling good about the world, that leave you wanting to visit the place that the book was set, those are the kind of books that I will be choosing and that I do choose. So I also try to highlight books that are written by women. I don't always do that, especially on the podcast, but I do try to stick to books that are written by women. I think the idea of women supporting women is something that needs to happen a lot more often, and I am all about it. So you will hear me recommend a lot of women authors, and the ones that I interview on the podcast are thus far all women. I try to find books, especially for the book club, I try to find books that are easily accessible, whether that is through my public library, whether that is through Kindle Unlimited, because if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get Kindle Unlimited. So I try to make it so that they're not like super obscure. Some of the ones on the podcast might be a little bit more so, but for some people living in different parts of the world, I think things are a little bit either easier or harder to access. And also, if a book doesn't draw me in within the first couple chapters, especially for the book club, I don't even bother finishing it. I have DNF'd a lot of books in my life, and you know what? I don't mind that at all. So I think there's way too many books to waste time on books that I'm not enjoying. So there you have it, our 3 most popular episodes from 2022. I hope you enjoyed them. And if you hadn't listened to them already, I hope you go back and take a listen. For 2023, I have decided to do things just a little bit differently. The first couple of weeks, I'm going to be sharing some episodes that I had already pre-recorded from last year and get those out to you. A couple of author interviews. And then I'm going to be doing the year in seasons. And so I have 5 or 6 episodes per season, and they are linked with either a genre or a place, some sort of a theme that's going to be carrying that season together. So I'm going to have, for example, in May to June timeframe, I'm going to have a themed season on Tennessee. And so all the books that I talk about, all the authors that I interview, the books will all be set in Tennessee and give you a whole month's worth of opportunities to listen to books, to share books about and authors that are set in Tennessee, different places within the place within Tennessee. So that's my thoughts for 2023, and there'll be different seasons for you to look forward to. But right now, thank you for joining me for this episode, for the top 3 episodes from 2022. And if you hadn't listened to any of them, check out the show notes, and you can listen to them through the links there. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Thanks for joining me today on the Literary Escapes podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode and maybe would like some more Literary Escape book recommendations, then come check out the Literary Escape Society. We're a community of travelers who love books, or maybe book lovers who love to travel. Either way, if you need an escape, a literary escape, come join us as we read our way around the world together, one book at a time. Check out the show notes to learn more about the Literary Escape Society. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.